Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about a float rig, a steelhead float rig. You could use it for salmon as well, but I use it for steelhead. That could be the best float rig ever, in my opinion. So when you're talking about float fishing or bobber fishing for steelhead, there's many different types of bobbers out there. I think the most common these days, would be like a bobber, a slip bobber and like a bead. Fishing a bead under a slip bobber is probably like the most popular thing today. But what I came up with, and I'm sure somebody else, has done this as well. I've just never seen it anywhere else. I just one day thought about doing this. I came up with a little system that is a fixed float, as well as you can make it a slip float. So when floats, you have your traditional slip float, which is going to slide up and down your line. In between, usually you have a swivel, your bobber weight, your bobber, and a bobber stop up top. So your bobber goes up and hits this bobber stop, and your bait is hanging down below. But the problem with that is that you usually have to, usually you run a swivel, and then you have to run a leader from the swivel to your bait. And so that length can fluctuate depending on your depth. And when you're sitting at home tying all your leaders, I usually tie, 3-4 foot leaders. And then you go fish a little tiny creek, and you only can use, your leader is only a foot long. And I don't really like fishing it to where it's that close to your swivel, right? It'd be your swivel right here. I just don't like the way that does, fishing in super shallow water. So then they made a fixed float. Actually, a fixed float's been around probably longer than a slip float, right? But they made your fixed float. Usually, they make like the little cheap, like clip-on bobbers. But usually for steelhead, you'd use like some kind of, fixed float that's fixed on your line with like rubber bands or something. And what that does is it basically you have to take it and slide it up and down your line by hand, and it just sits wherever you put it. So if you put it 2 feet above your lure, that's where it's going to be. And you just adjust it where you want it by hand. And that works good for shallow water. For fishing like small creeks, I love to do that. Shallower, spots on the river, shallower riffles, whatever it may be, when you find shallower water. But the problem is that most rivers have a combination of deep water and shallow water. You may go to one spot and it's a really, shallow tail out, and then you may go to the next spot and it's a big, deep hole. And so if you have only a fixed float, it's going to be really hard to fish a big, deep hole. But if you have just a slip float, it might be really hard to fish a really shallow tail out or shallow riffle. So with this invention here, what I did was I took a little float. This is a little slip float. This is actually an 1/8 ounce float, but it floats pretty high. It floats more like a 1/4 ounce. So I can put an 1/8 ounce weight and an 1/8 ounce jig and it still floats good. But technically it's supposed to be an 1/8 ounce float, but it's probably more of like a 1/4 ounce float. But what I did is I run braided line for my main line, and then I run a leader of, this is actually P-Line CX Premium. That's what I'm running here. You can run a fluorocarbon, but fluorocarbon sinks, a lot better than the CX Premium, which is a copolymer line is what this is, so copolymer. But fluorocarbon is really, it sinks too much when doing this, and you kind of want a line that floats to make it easier to bobber fish. So I like running the CX Premium on there, the P-Line CX Premium. I'll put a link in the description if you want, so you can find it. But what I do is I run a big leader of that, and I run usually about deeper than like the deepest hole I'll be fishing. So if I know I'm going to a river and the deepest hole on the river is 8 feet, I'm going to run about an 8 or 9 foot leader onto my braid. And then what I do is slide a bobber stop onto this leader. I slide a bead, a little stopper bead. I slide my float I slide a little bullet weight, like, you know, I'd use for bass fishing, and then I slide on another bobber stop. So what that does, because I have a bobber stop below and a bobber stop above, it allows me to keep the float fixed. I can slide it all together and keep it fixed, and then I can just tie on, you know, say a jig, or I can tie on a swivel and then put a bead underneath of it, and you have a fixed float. You just got to keep it all together. Or if I go into deep water, I can take this top bobber stop and I can slide it up to, you know, say I'm in a hole that's 6 feet deep, I can slide it up to 5.5 feet deep, and now you got a slip float. Now this bobber will slide all the way up, keeping your weight and down here, and then your jig down below it, or whatever you may be running. So it's a very effective technique. I started fishing it last year. I just kind of came up with the idea because I really love fishing fixed floats. But then, yeah, like I said, you go to a deeper hole and it's hard to fish the fixed float. I kind of, you know, started experimenting last year, and I fished this a lot last year, and I really like it. I've had some success with it. I really like the way that it's set up. Now, I use it for steelhead just because usually I use smaller bobbers for this. Because the smaller the bobber and the lighter the weight you have, the easier it is for the bobber stop to keep it all fixed together. If you have like a big, you know, 3/4 ounce bobber, that bobber stop's going to have a hard time holding that big 3/4 ounce weight. So I like to do it in smaller sizes. So usually I use it for steelhead with these small little bobbers. My brother was actually using it. He caught a Chinook, big Chinook salmon in one of my videos on this bobber rig here. You know, you can really fish whatever you want with it. But anyway, it's a really versatile, you know, bobber technique. Now, if you wanted to, you know, fish a fixed float and a slip float, you could carry 2 rods with you, you know, of course. You know, but I'm already going to carry 2 more rods. So, because I carry with me, usually I carry this rod with me. I'll carry a bobber dog rod with me. And then I'll carry maybe like a rod to fish like spinners and that kind of stuff. So I'm already carrying, you know, 3 rods. So if I wanted to do a fixed float and a slip float on a separate rods, that'd be, you know, another rod that I'd have to carry. So this just makes it simple. 1 less rod you have to carry because I'm adding these 2 techniques together. I can make it fixed or slip. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you kind of understood how I rigged that. You know, and if you did, maybe try it. You know, if you're not interested in this and you like the way you have yours set up, that's fine. But you know, I would totally encourage you guys to try that rig. You know, it works very effective for me. You know, it's great in the water we have here, where, like I said, one hole can be 8 feet deep. The next hole, you know, the next spot could be, you know, a foot deep. So it's very easy to adjust, and you can make it fixed or slip. So it's really easy. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, salmon, bass, whatever, subscribe, and maybe comment down below what you would want to see next as a video. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.